In this video, we're moving on to the arms, which can get a little tedious. I'm going to get to the fingers. First of all, I'm going to turn off the body. Don't really need to see any of that for this. Now, the last video, I did already add an IK control to the arm. I'm going to add another one to the shoulder. But this time, it's going to be a single chain instead of a rotate plane. So I go to skeleton, create IK handle, single chain. Want to make sure it is set to the right one. And go from there to there. I'll add another one over here, like that. And what these let me do is shrug. Here, if I just grab them both. That's all the IKs I'll need for this. Next, the hand itself. I'm going to start with this circle object right here. I'll make sure I delete history and freeze transformations. Now, what I want is for this circle to be oriented the same direction as his hand. Straight off the arm and I'll line up like this. However, if I do that, I rotate this, I will always have a rotate in one or more of my rotate transforms over here. If I freeze transformations on this, I'll get rid of the rotates, but then modify freeze transformations. It's no longer rotated to match this. Undo all that. So instead, I'm going to put this inside of a group, and the group will carry all my rotations. And to add it to a group, I just hit Control-G with it selected. Now it's in a group. It says so right here. Nothing changed right there. I'll check that. Windows, Outliner, Group. And there it is. Apparently I've already got a group and you're doing something. Oh, that's for his body. Okay. Now I'm going to move this and snap it onto my wrist. So I'm going to hold down V, grab it by the center, and just snap this directly onto the wrist. I'm going to turn his arm back on, his limbs, to make sure this is not too big or too small. I think that'll be about the right size. I'm going to actually have two of these. I'm going to select my nerve circle again, duplicate that one, and scale it in. And then shift select on this and parent. I also want this to be frozen. But then how do I get back to my group? Well, I could either go back to the Windows Outliner and select it from here, or if I click on either one of these, I can just hit the up arrow on my keyboard until this says Group 2 over here again. Now, one of these is going to control the entire arm, and one of these is control just the rotation of the hand. But first things first, I want to make sure these line up properly, so I'm going to select the group again, shift select my arm right here, press P for parent. As soon as I parent it, I get back to my group again. I'm going to set my rotates to 0. And there we go. Sometimes when you do this, the circles are instead rotated exactly 90 degrees from that. I just rotate them back into place and then freeze transformations on them. Doesn't really matter. The important thing is I've got my group oriented so it matches the arm. But I don't want it to stay parented to this arm. So if my group's selected, I hit Shift P on my keyboard and that unparents it. And now you can see the numbers back in my rotate again. The good news is, as long as they're on the group, it doesn't matter because there's not going to be any rotations on my individual controls. Now, this is the one time I do not freeze transformations on an object. I want this to keep these rotations on there. It's fine, though, because I'm never going to touch them. It's just there to give this the angle that I want to have. I'm also going to go ahead and name these, so I'll arrow back up. I'll name this L arm control TTRL group. I'll name this one L arm control L hand control. There. For the other one, I just up arrow again until I get back to my control group. We're going to duplicate this, Control D, move tool, hold down V and snap this onto this arm. I'll do the exact same thing. I'll shift select, hit P, set my angles to 0, and then shift P to unparent it. First, I want to rename it. It's no longer my left arm. It's my right arm control group. Right arm control. Right hand control. And there you go. Next, I'm going to select my left arm control, shift select my IK right here, constrain parent. Remember, this is different than parenting. This is a parent constraint. They sound very similar, but they are different. When I parent something, like when I parent this to this, Windows Outliner, you can see that they are connected in the Outliner as a hierarchy. But when I use the parent constraint, you can see that there's the IK, there's the arm control. constraint parent. They're connected through the constraint, but not actually linked together in the outliner. Now I can move this around, and the arm will move with it. I'll do the same thing over here. Constrain parent. Next, I'll select my hand control, shift select the joint, the hand joint right here, constrain orient. Now this one will control the rotation of the hand. Same thing with this one. Next, I'm going to add controls for my fingers. Now what I usually do is I have a control for curling my fingers one at a time, control for slightly twisting each finger one at a time, and a control for spreading them out away from each other or pulling them back in again. I also have similar controls for my thumbs. But rather than putting them directly onto the fingers themselves, I'm going to put them onto my hand controls. And to do this, I can add new channels to my hand controls. Now you can see you've already got translate X, Y, and Z channels, rotate X, Y, and Z, scale X, Y, and Z, and visibility channels. But I can create new ones by going to Edit, Add Attribute. I'll go up here, it says long name. I'll start with the index. I want this to control how it curls, so I'll call that index curl. Next, I'll tell it how big I want this to be able to go. I can leave it like this and it'll just be infinite, but I want to have a maximum and minimum for each of my finger curls. And just because it curls more inwards than it does outwards, this will need to straighten out a little bit. I'm going to make this from -5 to +10. Negative will be straightening it out, positive will be curling it in. Add index twist. We'll twist it around the knuckle, clockwise and counterclockwise. It'll be about the same, -10, +10. So I'm going to keep these the same numbers as negative and positive. You may not think much about your fingers twisting, but they do have a little bit of give. And even though you can't really twist it with your direct control, sometimes you just get in a position where in order to get the finger angled correctly for what's trying to hold or press into or some weird pose, you just got to have a little bit of twist in here to fake it a little bit. So I'll hit OK. Next, I'll move on to the middle finger. Middle curl, same as last one, -5, +10. Middle twist, -10 to +10. Ring finger, ring curl. Ring twist. I'm just using tab to move to the next one. Pinky curl. Pinky twist. Spread to spread out all my fingers. So I'll take this one from -10 to +10. And then I'll move on to my thumb. Thumb curl. Treat this about the same as the others. And thumb spread. I can hit OK, that'll close it as well. And if I scroll down here, I can see all these different channels I've added. They've all got this little gray patch next to them. You can see some of them are shorter. That's because the curl has less room to move. That's what that's supposed to mean. Next, I want to make sure my animations, I'm rigging, because this is technically an animation tool, but riggers have co-opted it to use it for rigging instead. So my animation key, I'm going to look for set driven key set. The set driven key window pops up, and you tell it this, with all those different controls right here, is going to be my driver. So I tell it to load driver. And I'll start with my index curl right there as the first one. I have to select which one of these is the driver. It's not just the object, it's the channel within the object. So index curl selected. Next, I select my finger joints. It's a little bit easier. Shift select all three of these. I'm going to load driven. Now they're in my driven section. I don't see anything over here until I select them, and now I can see my translates, rotates, and scales. Which ones do I want to rotate? X, Y, or Z? I'm going to hit E over here so I can see my rotation tool. Looks like it's going to be my X. The red circle is my X. So I'll click on Rotate X. And because at the moment my index curl is set to 0, this is the default position. This is the 0 position. So we hit key. And now it says that at index curl 0, this is the position for those rotate X's. If I now go to index curl and pull it all the way up to 10. Grab these three again. Turn on my fabric so I can see what my hand looks like. I'm going to rotate these until it is as curled as it's going to get. And I typically like to give this an even, memorable number. That way I can repeat it on the other side. So if this one's going to be curls 10, the rotation for each one of these is going to be 60. I'll hit key again. Now if I go back to my curl, index curl, from 0 to 1, 0 is the relaxed position, 100 is the curled position. If I take that to -5, I can now straighten this out. Rotate that way. That's completely straightened out, although some fingers can go a bit further than that. Don't go too crazy, otherwise it looks like you just broken his hand. I find it's good to give it exaggerated poses here, because if you can't do it and you need it, well, you have to go back and redo the whole rig. Let's try -30. Now let's try -40. Just have a little bit of extra there. That's too much. I think I'll stick with -30. Hit key. Now if I scroll back and forth, look at that. Set this back to 0. Next, I'll move on to index twist. And for this, I really only need the top finger. So I'll select that, hit load driven. This is going to rotate on the Y. That's the green circle right here. So I'll set rotate Y here. And my index twist, always be careful because sometimes when you click on this, this changes what it's set to. Double check it before you start hitting key. My index twist is on 0, so I hit key to set the base position. And now if I can index twist, now I set this to 10. It doesn't really matter which direction you rotate this in, that way or that way. It's kind of arbitrary, so I tend to rotate towards the thumb. And I'll make that -50, because that seems to be about what this is setting me to. Key. Index twist. And -10 rotates it in the other direction. +50. Key that. And now rotate both directions. Now move on to middle curl. So I need to reselect my joints for my middle finger. Load driven. Highlight them. Just like before, it's going to be my rotate X. And key this at the base position. Set that to 1. Once again, about 60. Actually, this one can probably go a bit further. Let's try 70. Oops. Yeah, I can go a bit further. Key that. -30 seems to be working for the extended position, so key. Set that back to 0. Middle twist. Grab my base. Go driven. Rotate Y. Make sure these are both set to the correct one. Middle twist. Rotate Y. Hit key. Rotate it. I think it was -50, was it? Double check. Next twist. Hit 50. So key that. One. Make the negative. Rotate again. +50. Keep clicking the wrong thing. There we go. Move on my ring. Load driven. Reselect. Apparently I mistyped that one. See if I can fix that or not. Edit attribute. Curl. There. There we go. Everything can be fixed. Make sure I did, in fact, put the right ones here. Load driven. And once again, rotate X. Key that at the base position. Curl it. For some reason, only the index seems to work best at 60. Everything else seems to work best at 70. If I curl this anymore, this part right here is going to get kind of weird looking. So I'll stop there. Key. And this always depends on what your character looks like, the size of the fingers, how long the fingers are, exactly where the bones are placed within the fingers. So I don't have a set of numbers in my brain that I always work with. I just pick some that are easy to remember, that are close enough to what it looks good when I curl it. All right, load driven, rotate Y, set this to ring twist, and key that. Ring twist. Pinky curl. Low driven, highlight, rotate X, pinky curl, rotate X, keyframe. Pinky twist. Always test it out afterwards. Now spread is going to require all four of the base knuckles right here. So load driven on all four of those. And this time it's going to be on the Z axis. So I'll make sure I got my rotate Z selected. Spread will now key on rotate Z. By the way, you know it works because they've got a blue rectangle next to the numbers. All right, now I'll go to maximum spread, spread them out. And generally, I make these ones the farthest, they spread the most, and these ones about half as much. So that outer one is 30, I'll make the inner ones 15. Key that. Now negative, till they touch. Key that. Next, I can move on to the thumb. And pay attention because the thumb is not necessarily oriented in the same direction. This time, the curl is going to be in the Z-axis, the blue circle right there. Make sure I got those added here. Rotate Z, key the base position. Maximum curl. Now, the first joint of your thumb is inside the meat of your hand. It's not going to usually curl as much as everything else, otherwise it starts getting kind of funky. So I usually curl this one about half as much as the others. So I'll keep that to 30, 60, 60. And they don't have to be the same number. I could set my fingers to any position I want. They just tend to curl or not curl. They don't tend to get weird positions usually. So I'll key that. And then in the opposite direction. This probably won't curl as much this direction, so I'll make it half of the previous one. And these half of their previous one, so 30 for these two. And what's happening right here, or before I said I didn't get my weights perfect, I just wanted to get them good enough. This is something I probably want to fix later on. The thumb is controlling too much of the arm, but I'm not going to worry about that right now. Next, twist. Low driven, thumb twist. This one is my rotate Y again. I'll double check I did actually keyframe that one. Yes. I sometimes forget to actually hit key. Maximum, I'll rotate this away. Doesn't matter which direction I take it, as long as I keep it consistent. If I wanted to, I could always set this back to the maximum, and I can change this again. But if I do that, I think I'll break my thumb. I think I'm happy with what it is. So about like that. And now spread should be whatever's left. Rotate X. Key that. Might be a bit much, but doesn't mean I have to bring it all the way up to the maximum. Let's have it like that as a possibility. You can see definitely distorting it a bit much right there, but I'll fix that outside of the video. I'll also do the other hand outside the video, just because I don't feel like doing both of these today, and because if you watch it again, you'll just watch me do the exact same thing, but on the other hand. Next, I want to control for my shoulders. Add another circle. W to move, snap this onto the shoulder. I'm going to rotate this into place. Something like this, maybe. I'm going to turn my armor back on again and see where that fits. And what I want for this is just give an indication that this is the thing that I'm grabbing for the shoulder. And I'm not going to make something that looks like a shoulder because I don't know what that would actually look like. I just tend to add a crescent shape. I just like to have a little curled shape above my arm, like that. Modify freeze, edit, late by type, history. L, shoulder control. I'll duplicate this, Control D, snap this to the other side, and this is my right shoulder control. We'll get rid of that number 1 at the end. Freeze transformations. And this will control the IK on the shoulder. So I have to go back to my rigging, constrain parent, should select, constrain parent, and now you can really shrug. Yeah, yeah. And I typically parent these the torso. So now if the torso moves around, the shoulder will move with it. All right. I'll call that enough for today. Save my scene. I'll take care of that hand before I start my next video. So I was finishing the other hand and fixing the weights so they no longer bulge out weirdly. It had been going right through the armor before I fixed it. I suddenly remembered, oh yeah, one more thing I need to do with the arms, and that is control the elbows. After all, I made these for that very purpose, just like the knees. I'm going to turn off the body again so I can see it a little bit easier. And just like before, I need each one of these to be in the very center of my arm. So I'm going to select these 3 joints, shift select my control, constrain, point. Grab this one, 1, 2, 3, select that one, point, put them both in the middle. And my outliner, I can see that these both have the point constraints in them. Don't need those, delete them. Also going to shrink these down a bit. Bit silly, there we go. Next, I want these to be aimed at my elbow. I'll select my elbow first, then shift select the control object, constrain, and the aim should be set exactly the same way it was when I did my knees. So I just click on that. There it is. Now it's pointing at the elbow. Shift, select. There you go. Constrain, aim. Get rid of the 2 aim constraints. Don't need those. Move tool. And once again, these are moving with the object, not the world. I'm going to pull these through the elbows to the other side. Make sure they're not too far away or too close, otherwise it gets a bit hard to find them. And now I can freeze transformations on these. But here's the thing, once I've frozen the transformations on those, if I parent these back onto my arm control, like I need to, suddenly the translate rotation shows up again. It is inheriting translating rotations from the group this is inside of. Same thing over here. I do this one. There it is. So if I freeze transformations before I parent it, I have to then freeze transformations again after I've parented. If I wait until after I've parented, I can just freeze transformations once and not have to worry about. But I did want to show you what happens if I parent something to an object that already is inside of something with rotation and translation. Modify, freeze. This will be my left elbow pull. right elbow pull. And just like with the knees, I select the control, shift select the IK, constrain pull vector, click, shift click, constrain pull vector. And now turn the body back on. You can see the elbows wiggle. Now that is interesting. Apparently, this got duplicated somehow. I'm going to delete that. Yeah, that's different. I'm not sure how I managed to do that, but good thing I noticed. Yeah, everything seems to be fine here. Apparently, I just had an extra arm bone in there for some reason, and I have no idea why. Try that again without anything weird happening this time. Yeah, there we go. Now I can do the chicken dance. Buck, 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 buck. All right. Now I really am done with the arms.